an entrepreneur maybe doesn't have employees yet. And so the business owner knows that they need employees. The entrepreneur knows that they're really good at everything and they got to figure out that there's other people who might even be better than you at certain tasks. So let it go and do it in a way that allows you to still retain control. What does that look like from your perspective? And welcome back to the Money, the Mindset, and the Mentoring podcast. We have Anita Woodward here. She runs the company Woodward Administration at WAdmin. And one of the great things is we met at a BNI group, and she has nothing but absolute energy. And when she came into the room, and I was like, holy cow, I got to talk to this lady. And your passion for helping people succeed using administration services has been nothing but the best that I've seen for somebody who's just exploding with energy. So thank you very much for coming to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
And so one of the things that people, and I hear this all the time, I work with a lot of real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and just business owners. And they say, you know, you look at what they're doing in the day, they're always busy. One of the things that you can universally hear, whether it's somebody who's unemployed or somebody who has 5 jobs or somebody running a multinational company, they're all going to say the same words. How you doing? I'm busy. And so that's just a universally accepted thing. So the next question always is busy doing what? And so talk to me about the idea of, number one, a little bit about what you do, but then most importantly is, when should somebody think about hiring help? Like what is sort of some of those things that pop out immediately that, look, maybe it's the time?
Okay. The high level version of what I do is I am a virtual administrator. I work on a fractional basis for a number of different businesses. Basically, I'm their office administrator, or if they're large enough that they have one, I wind up being the owner or president's EA, keeping them on track. The longer thing is you need to think about where you're spending your time and whether you're spending it on the really high value tasks, which are bringing in more revenue or building your business or doing things to help you grow, or if you're spending it on a lot of the lower value tasks. Administration, much as I love it, I'm a weirdo, I understand that, is not for most people their first passion and the thing that they enjoy doing. And a lot of, especially small business owners, get stuck in the mindset that they need to do everything. And because when you're starting out, you tend to do everything yourself. But as you start growing, you have to start balancing which is the task that is better for me as a business owner to do. And what I wind up seeing a lot of is one of two things happen. They do all the high value tasks and ignore all the low value tasks, but they still have to happen. So what they wind up paying for quite literally is fees and fines and balls getting dropped that shouldn't be getting dropped. Mm-hmm. Or they spend the time on the low value tasks and their growth stops or even starts to shrink, which is not ideal.
Absolutely.
So that's when you start needing to consider if it's time to bring someone else in to be able to support you. Now, go ahead.
In the idea of that, there's a great principle. It's called the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle can be commonly known as the 80-20 principle, which basically means that 20% of whatever you do typically generates 80% of your return. But we still have to do all the 80%. And, you know, we see this happen a lot of times in sales organizations where they're like, we got to get these salespeople doing administrative work. It's like, why? Why do we need them? No, we need them out selling. We need other people working with them in tandem, or technology or any of the mix of the above to be able to just have them focus on the one thing that they're good at. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of the 80-20 is that, and I think when we were talking the preamble, is the idea that if you're a CEO or if you're a VP or if you're running your business and you're that entrepreneur spirit and you're doing everything, start writing the things down that you're doing and just jot them down and put them in 2 lists, right? Yeah. High impact and medium impact. And then once you do that, look at that list and then break it out. Am I good at it or am I bad at it? And it's going to make it very easy to figure out what you should be focusing on and what you shouldn't be focusing on.
The other thing I would recommend is, do I enjoy doing it? or do I not enjoy doing it?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the stuff that you don't enjoy, regardless of whether you're any good at it or not, will wind up getting pushed to the bottom of the list, which winds up costing you in it's not done in time, or you wind up with fees because you didn't submit the thing in time.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And the idea is, I love, there's a Venn diagram that I draw all the time where there's three circles and they kind of cross section with each other at different points. And there's one middle bit, which all the circles cross over each other. And each circle, one is what you're good at. One is how much you get paid doing it. And the last one would be is how much do you enjoy doing it. And if it sits all in the middle of those three tasks, you know that's your 20%. That's what you need to be doing all day, every day, as much as humanly possible. So if people do that and they start writing that out and they say, okay, well, now I've figured out there's the things that I'm really good at. There's the things that I need to outsource. And I know there's a lot that needs to happen up here, up in their head, to be able to start saying, and I need to release control into that. When people are going through that process of just the mental play, the mental game of being able to relinquish control to another individual, because I know for a lot of business owners, and I'll call them entrepreneurs, not business owners. To me, a business owner has employees. An entrepreneur maybe doesn't have employees yet. And so the business owner knows that they need employees. The entrepreneur knows that they're really good at everything and they got to figure out that there's other people who might even be better than you at certain tasks. So let it go and do it in a way that allows you to still retain control. What does that look like from your perspective? How do they get past that barrier, and what systems do they use to kind of create success through that?
I find with a lot of people, being able to articulate what they want done is the start of it, because then it becomes a conversation of, okay, is this a thing you're good at? Well, I'm not bad at it. Great. Maybe someone who's good at it can do it in less time than you're spending. What could you do with that time instead? Great. If you could get back those 2 hours, then that would mean you'd be able to do the thing that you make money on, or the thing that you really enjoy doing, instead of this thing that you're not so great at. So how about let's start off with, let's figure out a way to reassure you that it's happening the way you want it to, and slowly let go as time progresses, so that it becomes, it's like any other trust building exercise. You've got to set up stuff that's higher contact to start. And then you can move to the lower contact as the person begins to trust, okay, yes, I've given this piece to someone else and they can do it and their hands on it.
Yeah. And that's the idea, is that if you do that work up front and you're able to build a system, because the thing is you're not actually giving up control. What you're doing is you are controlling the outcomes through a system and a relationship. And that system, if you well document that system then is going to be the support that's going to allow you to communicate in a way that you have an effective process. And that effective, because you've been doing that process and you've been following a system, you just never wrote it down. I mean, there's a great guy, his name's Brandon Dawson. He wrote a book called The 9-Figure Mindset. And one thing that he really talks about a lot in this book is he said, as soon as you start a business, everything you do, write it down. Actually, Gary Keller from Keller Williams, he says the second you start a business, write everything down, because that should be the last time that you do that process. Because you should be immediately looking for somebody to take over that process. Unless you want to have a job, that's a different mindset. But if you want to have a business, somebody should be taking over that process. Write it down.
On the principle of, you can't change what you can't measure, if you don't have it written down what the process is, you can't then turn around and go, okay, I want to do X, Y, Z. We do that by A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. You can't in a year go, is this the best way we could do it, if you don't know what that looks like?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, I think once you've written down and then you say, I've got this done and I'm measuring this, I'm using key performance indicators to measure this, then it's not just, I've got a really great relationship with Sally. She does this stuff. I really like what she's doing, but I have no way to actually figure out what exactly she's doing. Having those KPIs to say that we now have tools to measure that success, it makes it such an ecosystem of value because you get measurable tools. You know what you're doing because you have measurable tools for what you're doing, and you know what everybody else is doing because they have measurable tools about what they're doing. Now, once you've looked at the idea of I'd like to either hire somebody internal or hire somebody external, what's the mechanism that you use to figure out, should I bring somebody internal into my business as an employee, or should I be looking external as a VA?
To a certain extent, it depends on how much you need. A lot of my clients, they simply don't need someone even part-time. They just don't have the number of hours they would need to be able to offer somebody. So working with an external VA is great because they don't take on that expense of having they don't have to find somebody a physical space. They don't have to find work to fill all of the additional hours. They can use what they need. That's it. I've had clients where they've gotten to the point where they need more than I can give them. So I help them. Here's the job description. Here's what I've been doing. Here's what you want that person who's going to come in to take over and be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the job description. This is now the part-time / full-time person. And we can go through the process of helping them find the right fit because we've been doing that already.
I think a lot of times when you work with the right VA organization, the big thing is they'll actually help you become more accountable to your recruiting process and your training
Absolutely.
process. And a lot of times when you hire, and the big mistake that most entrepreneurs make is they need to hire somebody. So they look around, they're like, Johnny over there, my cousin's not working. He's been on the couch for the last 3 months. I know he needs a job and I just need stuff done. I'm going to hire Johnny. And we all know how that works out. It doesn't go so well. And so they don't have a rigid process to bring them in. Whereas when they start immediately looking external, especially when they look double external, which is that VA, they all of a sudden people go, I need a process. It's like, well, no, actually need a process, both whether you're irrespective if you're hiring internal as an employee, especially if you're hiring internal as an employee, but also as you're hiring as a VA. Both those situations need a process.
You need to know what you're looking for. You need to know what skills you're looking for. You need to know what capacity, what budget, etc. One of the things that I often see is people saying, I would like to get a VA. I want to pay them $3 an hour. And I'm going, you know what? There are absolutely services where you can do that. I'm not it.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that because that's something that I think is interesting. Because most people, when they think VA, they think you're going to be hiring from the Philippines or from India or from South America. There's actually a lot of different styles of VA companies. A good friend of mine, she runs a VA company down in the States that specifically hires just American. It's just American VAs, and so it's American working for American companies. So the idea is for your organization. Your organization's a VA company that's specifically focused in Canada. And talk a little bit about that because everything you do is actually Canadian people, right?
I do have one U.S. client.
One U.S. But you're when it comes to you as an individual, as a company, you're Canadian based.
Absolutely. In all honesty, the way I describe it to other people is, are you looking for a task-based person? You know what? If you have a specific task you want to say, here, do this, these are all the steps I want you to follow, etc., go get the VA that's overseas because that's what they're really, really good at. If you want someone who will help you identify gaps in your processes, potential problems down the road, who's going to, forgive the word, more holistically look at your business and see where the opportunities and pitfalls are going to be, someone like me is a better fit because I have multiple decades of experience working as an administrator. I have the ability to go, hey, by the way, this and this and this and this and this are happening, which leads me to suspect this is going to happen. What would you like to do about that? And usually by the time that I say that to my clients, they're going, I haven't even had time to think about that. Do you have any recommendations? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's look at this and this.
So I think the idea of what you're saying is that when you're looking to hire overseas, you're looking for somebody who can look at the scene processes, the script processes, the routines, the algorithms that they need to follow. If you have something that's a little bit more obtuse, or you're trying to discover a little bit about the unseen processes that happen in your business, having somebody who's more localized, who more knows about the nuances of what it is to have a Canadian organization, what it is to have decades of experience that's brought to the table, it's a very different scenario. In looking overseas, you're probably not going to get the right answer for that.
Yeah.
So seen versus unseen.
Yeah. In general, most of the people overseas, I mean, they're really good at what they do, but you're talking about a much shorter experience life, and you're talking generally more hand-holding of what they do.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Awesome. So for people to reach out to you, the best way to get you is WAdmin is the place to go. And Anita Woodward, you're the experienced local admin, fractional admin that can help people really grow and scale their businesses. And it's been an absolute pleasure going on this journey with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
I did too as well. And guys, thank you so much for joining us today on the Money, Mindset, and Mentoring podcast. We will see you on the next one.